Welcome to 5-Star Company Culture with your host, Josh Cunningham. In this podcast, we explore how culture is the key to unlocking massive profits and unprecedented freedom. Discover insights, strategies, and inspiring stories to transform your life and business. Here's your host, Josh Cunningham.
All right. Hello and welcome to another episode of our 5-Star Company Culture podcast. I'm your host, Josh Cunningham. We're joined today by a very special guest, Ricky or Richard or whatever you want to call him, Ricky Howard, former Lieutenant Colonel of the Air Force for 20 years. How's it going?
What's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks so much for being on the show today. We've got some exciting stories to tell. Obviously, we love highlighting anything that's really culture related here. And anybody with a military background's probably got some really incredible stories about how culture and unity and values can drive massive amounts of people, right? Of all different backgrounds, all different generations, to serve a common purpose and a common good. Like this wonderful country of ours. But Ricky also has an amazing company as well that helps businesses actually sell to the government. So it's a whole entire revenue stream that a lot of people don't think about. So got a lot of expertise to share on the show here today. But Richard or Ricky, whatever you want to go by, why don't you give our guests here a little intro to yourself and your past professional experiences?
Well, sounds good. And since I have Ricky on the screen, we'll go with Ricky for today, I guess.
Let's do Ricky.
Yeah, so no, it's easy. I grew up in Massachusetts, spent 20 years in the Air Force, flew intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance aircraft for the first 12 years or so. And then I ended up switching into the profession of acquisitions, the military profession of acquisitions. And that is basically you're in charge of putting companies on contract for the government to do everything they need, from accounting services to landscaping to like high-end tech development. If you name it, the government's probably buying it. So I got to do that for a long time. I got to see kind of the struggle with some of the small business approach to it. Small businesses don't understand that A, the government does buy what they sell, and B, how they do it, because it's a lot different than, you would market or sell commercially or B2B. So that's really it. I started a consulting company after I retired in 2019, and I have a small team, and we help small businesses primarily sell their products and services to the government. We have a podcast called DoD Contract Academy and a website, dodcontract.com. And that's what we're doing. We're training companies, we're training salespeople and coaching them and helping them to close those big contracts.
That's great, man. What are some of the biggest differences right off the bat? I love small businesses. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, always have been, always will be. And, it's the lifeblood of this country is, small businesses and being able to serve the client and create a profitable lifestyle for yourself. But yeah, a lot of times you're unaware of something until you come across it for the first time. So why don't you enlighten some of our guests here? What are some of those differences between selling to the government versus selling to your average consumer?
Yeah, it's a good question. And one thing I would say is, for you or I, we can go out and make a purchase, right? I can go to the Toyota dealership and buy a 4Runner if that's what I want. I could buy from my friend's dealership if I want to. I can, go, or you as a small business owner can call the right prospect and close a deal right there on the phone, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the big differences between how the government buys and how we buy or resell I'll call it the real world, is they can't just go out and make a purchase like that. Most people in the government will never be able to make a purchase. It's a very small percentage. And there are essentially, if you think about our country, we started talking about, our nation, right? So from the birth of our nation during the Revolutionary War, we have basically regulated how the government makes purchases for over 200 years. So, we can go back and look at the founding fathers sending, not emails, but letters, like George Washington, even, just pissed at different, either businesses that were selling to the government to fuel the war, whether they're providing clothes or ammunition or something, or as well as government people that maybe did something wrong. Mm-hmm. And so then they, the policymakers all get together and make some policies to try to change that. And what has happened essentially is it's this cycle that keeps happening where policymakers make a bunch of policies, then we need to buy things quickly for a war or for whatever the purpose. And we realize it's so slow that they have to change things around. And so they make it easier. And then somebody does something wrong or illegal. And so then you get a bunch of people that don't really understand the system get in, politicians, they get in, they make policies and regulations. So, at one point we had over 60,000 pages in regs that dictated how a procurement officer is actually going to buy anything. And
Wow.
so you can imagine just how, time consuming and frustrating that can be. And it's a little bit better now, but to really answer your question, it takes a little bit longer to sell to the government.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a formal process for selling. So you're not just going to call somebody or, go door knocking and, get a lead from the government and make that sale. It happens quite a bit differently. And we could get into that if you'd like to.
Yeah. It's interesting. You talk about, email versus the traditional, post office. I was watching a trivia show the other day, and it was revealed that one of the benefits of being a president is that you get free postal service for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Probably used to be a little bit more of an advantage than it is today. But hey, that was, like you said, back in the day, that was probably much more intentional about the communications between the political leaders and other people. But that's very interesting, and obviously we all, most people that are small business owners, you have to have some sort of love and desire for sales and for, lead generation and lead conversion, and then, being able to communicate very clearly and articulate what your USP is. And so we're always just going straight to the decision maker. But what you're saying is, in the government world, there's very few decision makers. So you've got a lot of hoops to jump through to be able to get to those people.
There's hoops, and you have a lot of people that can say no, and not very many people that can say yes. Or in some cases, you have a lot of people that also have to say yes, right? So it's not like selling to a regular business, right? So the base general, much to I guess it contradicts popular opinion, the base general isn't in charge of making all the purchases on the base, right? So you can't just come in and say no, take that company off contract or put this one on, because that would be seen as preferential treatment. And so we've seen if you go back to the news, you can see a history of generals getting in trouble because maybe they helped a company get a contract, like a big defense company, and which of course is not allowed. And but maybe pivoting off of the complication or the what the differences are, I think one thing to consider, especially if you're a small business owner and you have a business, you're bringing in revenue, is that ignoring government contracts could be ignoring a huge income stream for your business. The federal government's the biggest purchaser of goods and services on the planet. They do buy just about everything, and they're required by law to buy from small businesses. I should say by policy. They have targets that the SBA sets. So on average, it's 23%. It's a little bit different per federal agency, but roughly 23% of federal purchases are going to have to be from small businesses.
Wow.
So this year or last year, I think it's a little over $150 billion spent on just about everything you could think of with small businesses. The DoD is a huge purchaser. About half of that is from the Department of Defense, and it's not like just weapons and ammo. This is things that you probably provide as a business owner. It's landscaping services, accounting services, legal services, food, items, clothing, tech, IT, cyber. So the list goes on. There's some comical. I just saw pet insurance, and I have to look up why the government was spending money on pet insurance, but I guess they were. So it's worth looking into, especially thinking about, your own business, the different income streams, because it can offset the economy fluctuations. And also, if you're going to sell your business, government contracts are probably one of the most stable income streams that you can get once you have those contracts.
Wow. So for a long time, you were a part of the military, and you were on one side of the transaction, learning and understanding, the needs and the motivation of that side. And then now you're on the private consulting side and actually helping clients put some of these deals together. That's very exciting. Well, as I said, this is 5-star company culture. We're all about understanding that culture is the foundation of a successful business, of making sure that, yes, there's leads and there's clients and there's tools to sell and increase revenue, but the foundation of it all is having a really strong culture that attracts and retains the right talent, that delivers exceptional customer experiences, and then as an entrepreneur or a business leader, creates some freedom in your life to not always be the one that has to do anything. So Any stories from your past experience that can sort of relate to exactly that message, how important company culture can be to achieving success?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's everything, whether it's the business or whether it's the military. And
Hmm.
we chatted a little bit before this, and we could go in a couple different directions. But one specific example that I can think of is from the military, and of course, leadership. As a military officer, you're constantly going through leadership training, and culture is a very important part of the community, especially when you're doing a hard job if you're flying missions. And I got to benefit from being in, flying squadrons that had extremely high morale and did a hard job. But I was able to take that with me through different experiences, right? And,
Hmm.
thinking about going to acquisitions when I did that initially, one of the shocking things that happened to me was experiencing a much different culture than I was used to.
Mm.
I entered an environment where I had some really smart officers, um, you know, uh, younger officers, captain level, lieutenant level. So think, mid 20s to, young 30s. And a lot of them were just looking to get out or, because, in acquisitions, a lot of times they are um, petitioned by some companies, even though they're not supposed to be, to go work for them because they have that understanding. But these guys aren't out deploying. They're
Hmm.
not out. They're not out flying missions, and a lot of the engineers in particular aren't necessarily building anything like they wanted to.
Mm.
It's a much more corporate experience, and I just saw guys wanting to get out. When I walked into this unit, a very low morale. People weren't happy, and
Mm.
that was something that me and a couple of my other leadership teammates had to change. And so, I mean, we could go through, how we changed that. And I would say probably had the highest morale on the base, when we left. And it was really a remarkable transformation that I can't take credit for all myself, but certainly I could tell you that, the culture difference, if you look at the culture difference in the morale level, when I got there and versus what we were doing, and meaning the output that the team was responsible for, as well as the morale and people, kind of competing to get into the unit, they're definitely tied, and there's no
Hmm.
question. So I think it's a really interesting angle that this is the topic of your podcast, because it's something that gets overlooked a lot.
Hmm.
Um, and it's one of the biggest things that could make you successful in business and in life.
Yeah. What were maybe one or two small changes that you implemented that created those big results? Because that's what people are always looking for. People are like, oh, culture, man, I'm gonna have to tip my business upside down on its head, fire everybody, rehire new people. That's not necessarily what it is about. Sometimes it's just about making a small adjustment, making something important that didn't seem to be important, and
Yeah.
it can create exponentially positive results.
Yeah. So for some of the things someone, your listeners may be able to take away, and some of them may be a little bit more specific to a military environment. But a couple of the things that we started doing right away is, one, we started taking a little bit of risk.
Hmm.
And when I say that, I mean, instead of taking the safest path in acquisitions, which would be sitting in your base in your office, and you're putting other people on contract to do things. I started deploying my engineers out to put these projects together, make sure, like, if they were going to the Middle East or somewhere else, they were going and they were part of the project, part of putting that together. That was a huge piece
Hmm.
of this. The other was attracting the right people. It's easy to get, as a business owner, I can certainly, feel other business owners that are reluctant to grow their teams at all, or maybe to bring somebody new on. But sometimes bringing new blood in and bringing a new perspective, a fresh perspective, is exactly what you need to really
Hmm.
supercharge the team and get things going. So we didn't hire a bunch of new people, but we did bring in a couple of key people that had a different take on things. They were kind of non-traditional. And then, in addition to the work we were doing and taking on, and some of the risk we were taking there, we were able to do things that were, I guess you might say, more on the fun side, right? So
Hmm.
we started doing camping trips together, and started doing things like naming nights, which is big in the flying community, kind of
Hmm.
unheard of in this acquisitions corporate environment. But yeah, just going out, coming up with call signs for all the guys that they were required to use. And even things like, so declare an enemy is a big theme among military units, right? So
Hmm.
a friendly enemy. So we would declare a friendly enemy on base, the another unit who, friendly pranks and whatnot, or just that we're competing against,
Yeah.
So a lot of those things were starting a band. We had a squadron band. We had a mandatory Friday, I guess for us, it's a beer call. Most flying units have a squadron bar, and we instituted that there. But it doesn't have to be a bar if you don't drink, but just having something that also, bringing a little bit of fun and morale building to the team is can have huge impact over time.
Yeah.
Although you might have to force it in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love some of the things you mentioned there. One of our core values here at Rockerbox is actually have fun while being the best, and I think those things go hand in hand is, when you have a pride for for the passion or for the service that you provide, it brings out the best in you. And then when you're doing your best, you're typically having fun doing it. And it's just this reciprocal, exponential building, living organism within your organization that you're proud of what you do. You deliver great service and you're doing it with a smile because you're having fun with it. And, I love some of the other things you mentioned, bringing in some outside people. Culture isn't about everybody thinking and having the same ideas. Culture is about, understanding and appreciating that people have different perspectives and different insights and different values, and being able to collaborate together and to build something together that's bigger than what you would have done individually. And then again, just re-highlighting the fun thing about it is, we do a lot of stuff here as well at Rockerbox where we're outside of the office. We have, competitions that might end up in a bowling night or an axe throwing night, or, we do have masterminds here. And then afterwards we'll go out and have some drinks with the team. And I've always seen an exponential return when you're doing stuff outside of the office with the team, because here's what you're going to get. When you employ people, whether they're on salary or hourly, you're going to get a fixed number of hours that they should be focused on your business. And so most businesses, when they clock out or when their day is over, that's it. You get no more investment of their mind or their spirit into your business. But if you just go out for drinks afterwards, what do you think the topics of conversation are going to be? They're going to somehow circle back to something work related. And now you're basically getting free hours of people being mentally and spiritually invested into your business. And then now you get those free hours of, contribution and brainstorming and collaboration. But then when people come back into the office, well, guess what? They're not just working with the people that they've only spent those fixed amount of, 40, 50 hours a week with. You're getting interaction with people that they spend 55 or 60 hours a week with. And so now the work that they're doing inside of the business has exponential returns as well, because they show up. It's not like it feels like a job and they're coworkers, but they feel like they're showing up and hanging out with their friends, and they're happen to be doing some work as well. So I love that. Declaring the friendly enemy, getting people to, the band, the going out for drinks, all that stuff is a great fundamental element of a company culture.
I'm also looking, this is a cheap one you can implement, but I was just looking at my kind of shadow box behind me here, but there's a green sticker. I don't know if you could see it. And then there's a black sticker here. And so two separate units. One of them, this is in Georgia. Now I can't claim that I came up with Al Attack, which is it's a flying unit down there, which is their motto. It's on the attack, I believe. And that is something we've just printed off 1,000 stickers. And I'm not telling anyone to deface property or anything, but, giving everyone those stickers, and when you have a friendly enemy, a lot of different things can happen, but just something as simple as having a sticker like that, and, maybe having some type of friendly challenge with that. And of course, there are things that are more serious, right? Spending time with, as I'm thinking about this, it was also interesting to me because this is walking into a unit that was kind of morally and, energy wise bankrupt, right? Like people were really, it was a depressive atmosphere. So, it almost had nowhere to go but up, but we did so many things to make it great that, we had people competing to be in that unit. And one of the things we would do is sit down with each of the officers and make sure that we were helping them career plan. And so a business can do this as well. If you have people, if you're an entrepreneur and you're hiring people by especially if they're younger, 20s or even younger, they're going to have goals and plans and be interested in, what your perspective is on that. Just being asked, what do you want to do 5 years from now, 10 years? Do you want to own a business? If it's something you're doing, that's something you can directly help them with. And, if it's not, maybe it's something you could invest a little bit of money in and bring an expert in to get some help, or you might know somebody that knows something about it. So just taking the extra time with people and talking to them and seeing what their goals and their visions are, that can have a big payoff too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really great point. A lot of times the leaders of the organization, the founder, the CEO, might have different personal goals than maybe an entry-level employee. But the thing is, if you can use that common ground of the organization that you're a part of to help each other achieve those goals, then it makes it so much more meaningful to show up every day and, hop in the same boat and row in the same direction. I love the stickers as well. From time to time, we'll have competitions here and we'll do like a fantasy draft where we'll just take our whole big team. We'll identify 2 captains. They'll do like a little draft of the employees. And it's not just, okay, now here's team A and team B. We're like, okay, now you got to come up with a name for your team. Right. And then if you really want to take it to another level, let's create a logo or something to go with it. And, let's put that on the scorecard here. Let's create some stickers or whatever. But the more meaning you can put to some of these really small things, the more purpose you put behind it, and you get more effort from people. They're excited to go out and play full out for whatever it was that you just created into existence. So that's
absolutely
awesome, man. It's really great shares there. Well, Ricky, if someone is interested in learning a little bit more about whether it be your expertise on finding ways to sell to the government, or just would love to have a chat with you more about your expertise, what direction do you point them in?
Yeah, so dodcontract.com is our website. So if you want to learn about selling to the government, we have an academy you can join. We have weekly coaching, all of the training there. If you just want to learn more about it without making an investment, absolutely go to our podcast, DoD Contract Academy. If you listen to those episodes, you're going to learn a lot about selling to the government, and it'll get you on your way. And you can also find me on LinkedIn if you put Richard C. Howard in there. And if it's something else, something non-government sales related, I'd be happy to discuss, career progression, leadership, morale, all of that.
So it may sound a little intimidating for some of you, right? It sounds like a lot of hoops to jump into, a lot of no's you're going to overcome. But with the help of a guy like Ricky here, he can help you hold your hand every step of the way. And, it's something that anybody can do, right? Anybody can do in a short amount of time, as long as you've got the right help and the right knowledge.
That's right.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much for listening, guys. Ricky, thanks for your time today. I know you're a busy guy. We'll let you get back to your busy schedule. And
thanks,
certainly for our viewers, stay tuned. We're going to have some more guests, some more insights, more unique content around building a 5-star company culture, and how that's going to help you achieve more profits and freedom in your life. So thanks again, Ricky.
Thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to 5-Star Company Culture with Josh Cunningham. Embrace these lessons to elevate your business and join the ranks of thriving organizations. Stay tuned for more episodes. And until next time, remember, culture is the key to your success.